They told you slavery was a tragedy. They told you it ended when ships unloaded their human cargo on foreign shores. But what if I told you that was only half the story? That the real horror began long before the first slave ship cast anchor? That in the heart of Africa, a man named Leopold II built a private empire, an empire fueled by violence, terror, and death, and the world turned a blind eye? Welcome to the Congo Free State, 1885 to 1908. You are about to witness a genocide so brutal, it still echoes in the rivers and villages of the modern Democratic Republic of the Congo. The whispers of ancestors, the cries of the enslaved, the stories of courage and survival are about to be laid bare. This is not just history, this is our warning. In 1885, at the Berlin Conference, Europe's greatest powers carved up an entire continent, without a single African in the room. King Leopold II of Belgium emerged from that gathering with not just scraps of territory, but with a personal fief, the Congo Free State. He branded himself an abolitionist and a civilizer, promising to end the slave trade and bring progress to Central Africa. But his promises masked a monstrous ambition. Beneath Leopold's polished veneer lay a craving for wealth that would ultimately cost millions of lives. Imagine, for a moment, a land the size of France, Germany, and Spain combined, filled with rich forests, teeming wildlife, and vibrant kingdoms. In these very jungles lay a resource Europe craved: natural rubber. Bicycle tires, automobiellining, industrial belts. The world's appetite for rubber was ravenous. And Leopold's Congo held the greatest stockpile on Earth. But rubber did not grow in neat, tilled fields. It thrived in the wild, and extracting it meant venturing deep into the forest. Leopold's agents discovered a simple way to turn that abundance into unimaginable fortune: force. In 1885, the Congo Free State began not as a Belgian colony, but as the personal property of one man, King Leopold II. He financed expeditions, bribes, and armies to cement his claim. No parliament in Belgium owned this land. It belonged to him alone. As one historian wrote, if you could drink the Congo River, you would taste profit. Yet Leopold's so-called civilizing mission was a lie. Underneath the treaties and missionary rhetoric, a ruthless mechanism of conquest was being built. Soldiers, known as the force public, were recruited from Swahili traders and local mercenaries, armed with Belgian rifles. They carried a mandate: bring in rubber, no matter the cost. Bicycle wheels, automobile engines, industrial belts. Prices soared, and with every Belgian bullet, the Congo's rubber flowed across the world. Leopold's civilizing mission gave way to an empire of terror. Rubber in Leopold's Congo was not harvested by willing farmers. It was extracted by forced labor. Officials set a simple formula. Each man, woman, and child was assigned an impossible quota, sometimes as high as 40 pounds of latex per month. Fall short, and the punishment was swift and gruesome. The chikot, strips of hippopotamus hide, became Leopold's signature tool of torture. Victims who failed to meet quotas were tied to trees, stripped naked, and lashed until flesh hung in ribbons. Some priests and missionaries bear witness in their diaries. The force of each blow, measured by the overseers, one account reads, who often were driven by bloodlust as much as duty. But even whipping wasn't enough for Leopold's overseers. They demanded proof that bullets were not wasted. So soldiers were ordered to bring back a trophy: the severed right hands of those they shot. Each hand proved a body fell. Each body justified the bullet spent. In towns and villages across the Congo, the ground ran red with human blood. Women, children, the elderly, no one was spared. One missionary wrote, When a soldier returned with a full basket, there was praise and reward. But when hands were missing, they were beaten or shot. The chikot and the bullet forced unimaginable cruelty. And still, rubber quotas climbed. Whips and bullets were only part of the terror. To ensure compliance, entire villages were held hostage. Chiefs saw their wives and children caged in huts built for that purpose, locked away until the rubber quotas were met. Starvation, disease, and despair spread faster than the vines themselves. The men who ventured into the jungle often never returned. If they did, it was to carry home a severed arm or to watch their families starve. Infant mortality skyrocketed. Adult survival was tenuous. A Belgian investigator noted that in some camps, 3 to 10 prisoners died per day. More than 12 million souls were shipped across the Atlantic. But how many millions more perished in the forests, in forced marches, in secret camps, in silence? It is impossible to know exactly, but scholars believe that between 10 and 15 million died in the Congo Free State's first quarter century. A genocide so vast, it dwarfed any European conflict of the era. And all the while, Leopold collected trophies. Ivory, rubber, revenue. In 1897 alone, he delivered to Belgium 1.3 million pounds of rubber. His personal fortune soared, yet Congo's heart bled. This was not merely a thief's greed. It was systematic, industrial-scale murder sanctioned at the highest level. Leopold's Congo Free State was not a colony. It was a private estate built on genocide. By 1892, the cruelty had become so widespread that the world took notice. Belgian officials bragged in letters, "We have in our hands the future of the Congo." But their future was drenched in blood. And they did everything to hide it. Entire villages were forced to trek to concession company stations. There, men, women, and children were herded into woody compounds. When rubber demands fell short, officials locked families in tiny wooden cages, some mere feet across. Disease raged, malaria, dysentery, starvation. Each cage was a tomb. One missionary wrote, "Of every group of prisoners, only 2 or 3 survive the first 6 months. The rest go mad or die." These hostages could not flee. If they did, entire families paid the price. Soldiers routinely razed villages to the ground, looting food supplies, so hosts starved before their captors. Babies died in their mothers' arms. Fathers watched their wives and daughters vanish into the jungle, never to return. And still, the world remained silent. At one point, a Congolese man sent a plea with a traveler to Europe. "They kill us if we don't bring the rubber." But few believed him. Newspapers in Paris and Brussels printed glowing reports. Congo Free State is a pillar of salvation. Meanwhile, the reality on the ground was a living nightmare. In villages across the basin, priests and elders watched the young and strong vanish first. Then came the women and children. Then the very memory of freedom. By one estimate, the population fell by half in 2 decades, an estimated 10 million souls lost to bondage, disease, or forced labor in the dense forests. And yet, Leopold's agents insisted, "We are merely imposing a modest tax." Congo's rivers and forests were alive with suffering. But to Leopold's court, these were just numbers on a ledger, hands to show off, trophies of conquest. Slowly, word of the atrocities trickled out. It began with missionaries who dared speak the truth and diplomats who refused to look away. In 1903, Irish diplomat Roger Casement landed on Congolese soil to investigate. His report of the Congo Free State, concluded in horror. The scene is one of wholesale and organized mischief and outrage on humanity. His damning testimony spread across Europe, but in Leopold's Belgic circles, they called it propaganda. In London, a young shipping clerk named Edie Morel noticed a discrepancy. Boats going to Africa were loaded with guns, chains, and ammunition. But those same boats returned with cargoes of ivory and rubber. Morel's shock turned to fury. He founded the Congo Reform Association. He wrote pamphlets. He spoke in churches. And slowly, the tide of public opinion shifted. In the United States, missionaries wrote letters in the New York Times describing men buried alive for failing to meet rubber quotas. Belgian bishops prayed for the Congo. Their voices carried across continents. Yet Leopold refused to budge, a stubborn king enthralled by his property. Some Congolese survivors managed to escape to neighboring territories. In 1905, a man named Mukindi Tatsabuka arrived in Angola, clutching a bundle of paperwork detailing the names of 155 persons shot by just one rubber company. His testament would come back to haunt Leopold's regime. Survivors told their stories in hushed tones in missionary stations. "They cut my father's hand to count bullets," one woman said. Another whispered, "I watched my husband die of hunger in the chain camp." These voices broke the silence, but not quickly enough. By the time international outrage peaked, millions had already perished. When Belgium finally annexed the Congo in 1908, Leopold's personal rule ended, but the damage was done. Leopold, too, died in 1909, still denying any wrongdoing. He never saw justice for his crimes. He was crowned by accolades, lauded by Belgian newspapers, his heart untouched by guilt. Meanwhile, the Congo Free State became the Belgian Congo, but conditions hardly improved. The brutal forced labor system persisted under Belgian colonial rule. Now under new management, roads, railways, and mines were built on Congolese backs. When locals protested, administrators blamed them for being backward. Yet once again, the outside world looked away. 1960, the Congo finally gained independence. Hope soared, then crashed into chaos. Patrice Lumumba, the charismatic first prime minister, was assassinated in 1961, another leader silenced in the name of foreign interests. A pattern emerged: Congo's wealth-fueled conflict, coups, and the rise of kleptocrats. The wounds of Leopold's century-long terror festered in every subsequent crisis. The same forests that once hid rubber quotas now hide armed militias. The same rivers that carried ivory and rubber to foreign hands now carry refugees fleeing violence. The scars of Leopold's regime cannot be healed by legislation alone. They run deeper than any treaty. Today, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is a nation of immeasurable potential, vast mineral wealth, rich soil, a mosaic of cultures. Yet it remains trapped in cycles of exploitation, this time by global powers seeking coltan, cobalt, and conflict diamonds. Congolese children still sing for peace amid gunfire. Mothers still yearn for their disappeared kin. But in that child's gaze lies resilience. In every marketplace, there's a hum of life that refuses to be smothered. Artists retell their ancestors' stories in song. Writers reclaim the pen to correct history. Educators teach their children that their land is not cursed, but that it remembers. And memory, we know, cannot be colonized. The genocide beneath the Congo is not just a footnote in dusty archives. It is a warning to the world. When profit eclipses humanity, no boundary is sacred. When silence protects injustice, history is lost. But when truth is spoken, memory awakens, and the future can be reborn. This is the legacy of King Leopold's Congo, a people who endured forced labor, brutal mutilation, and unspeakable terror, and yet survived. Today, We honor them by refusing to forget. We honor them by speaking their names, listening to their stories, and bearing witness. Because healing begins with remembering, and justice begins with truth. For the millions who suffered in silence, may your stories live on.